Hi, I'm Denis DiBlasio, and I have a project out through Northeasten Music Publications, and I'm really excited about it. It's a combination of a jazz book that can be used in a group setting and some big band charts that go along with the idea of the book. The book itself is called Pathways to Improvisation, and it came about through me trying to teach improvisation in a group setting. Improvisation is usually something that you work on by yourself. It's a solitary practice, and I've been in situations where I had a group in front of me, and even though you can't teach improvisation to a group, you can certainly drill the aspects of improvisation. You can drill certain techniques, you can drill scales, you can drill certain types of theory that would apply to improvisation in a group. And if we look in the book, Pathways to Improvisation, if we look at page 12, what you will see is a description of the major scale. This is the first chapter, and there are quite a few chapters that list different scales and the different theory wrapped around these different scales. On page 1 you can see all the different modes of the major scale and the chords that they would represent. Or you can see what modes you can use on a particular chord. Many students know their scales, but they don't realize that you can actually play a certain mode for a certain scale. So by knowing a major scale, you know actually 7 different modes, which equates to 7 different chords. If we look on page 14 and page 15, page 14 is treble clef, page 15 is bass clef. They're right next to each other. And all of the, they're really 4 measure examples, and all of the examples ascend chromatically, which enables any instrument to play and eliminating that whole need to have an E-flat book or a B-flat book or a bass clef book. Everything is right in front of you. If you look on the first line, you'll see the C major scale with the chord change written above it, C major 7th. And in parentheses, you will see a capital C, which indicates any C instrument would play that scale. If you go down 2 lines where you see the B-flat in parentheses, any B-flat instrument will play from that line. And if you go down to the bottom, 3 from the bottom, you will see an E-flat in parentheses. Your E-flat instruments can start there. And when you get to the bottom of the page, you simply go to the top. And by giving this sheet out, the treble and bass clef, any student can sit next to any other student, and regardless of their instrument, and everyone can drill off of this without having to worry about all the different books. And once you drill, this is what I would do. I would have students drill this page, and after they get pretty good with it, I always would remind them that the chord symbol is representative of that scale. And on page 13, you see just the chord symbols. And you still have the indicators indicating key of C, key of B-flat, key of E-flat, as far as the instrument starting in the right place. And what we would do is run those exercises that we just drilled while we're looking at the chord changes. And that really gets a student realizing that a chord change is actually a scale, or it could be a pattern. And the book is loaded. Each chapter has 5 different patterns. We have major scale, we have harmonic major scale, harmonic minor scale, whole tone scale, diminished scale. There are quite a few different scales that and patterns, 2-5-1s, bracket method. They're all lined up. For the most part, I would say 85% of this book are scales and patterns that are lined up and organized this way so they can all be practiced with a group. When I have the group rehearse a couple patterns and a couple scales, then I'll turn them loose on some big band charts, which I'll talk about in a minute. The book has quite a few aspects to it other than exercises that can be played with a group. If you look on page 8, you will see a section about transcribing. Once you get these scales together, once you get these chords together, then you need to sound like a jazz player, and that's very important. So transcribing solos is probably one of the most important things you could do to wrap all this syntax up and make it sound like it's jazz. How do you get a scale to sound like jazz? If you look on page 9, I actually list some players that are good for first-time transcribers. If you've never transcribed a solo, it's wise to pick the right person. And all these players on page 9 are good people to get started with. We put out 10 big band charts that are pretty hefty charts, and they can be played by a really good high school, they can be played by university, they can be played by pros. But the idea behind these charts was to have a solo section in each chart where you can utilize one scale. It could be chromatic scale as the opening piece to this segment. The opening piece is called Side Effects May Include Swinging, where you solo on the chromatic scale, which is covered in one of the chapters. There's a chart that we're going to hear is called Frankie Found Cuba, and you can use the major scale on the concert F major scale on this chart to solo on, or you can actually play along with the changes. The way you would drill the scale, say even in a group, let's say your group is going to play Frankie Found Cuba, what you could do is have the group play page 18, which is the major scale, and have the group work on the scale in thirds. Or you can have the group play page 20, which is still the major scale, but it's just another pattern of the scale. Once the group can get the scale and play it in different patterns, when they go to improvise in the chart, they have more that they could bring to it. So this is a good way to have a chart that doesn't sound like it's a one-chord chart. The idea was to make the chart sound like it had enough meat in it that you can create a great performance with your group. And also the series of 10 charts covers a complete spectrum of styles. We have ballads, Latin tunes, calypso tunes, swing tunes, fast swing tunes, medium swing. You can create a complete concert out of these 10 charts. After you drill a technique, it's sometimes tricky to figure out how do I use this technique in a solo. You can certainly learn from listening to great players by transcribing solos, which we talked about earlier. But if you look on page 286, that would be chapter 25, what I did was I picked a couple common forms in jazz and I wrote out a solo, but indicating what technique is being used where, and it's also over the chord changes of that particular tune. And there's a little number next to the technique indicating the chapter that you can go back and reference. So you can see how you can mix up different techniques, because jazz players don't just play one technique all the time. You don't just play pentatonic scales or just a diminished scale. We learn a lot. It's like a salad bar. We learn all about these different techniques, and then we mix it all together. And chapter 25 can help you see how you can incorporate some of these different techniques. So when we try and put all of this stuff together, if you look on page 296 and page 297, you will see strategies, how you can combine this information, how you can get started improvising. Sometimes if you don't have a teacher, you just need a strategy to get started in creating. And that's what this whole system is about. Get yourself started in creating. Don't worry about a lot of chords. Don't worry about a lot of stuff. Find out a scale you like, find a technique you like, drill it a certain way, and apply it, and have fun creating off it. And when you look on in the book on chapter 26 and 27, you'll get some tips on how to get started. So keep this stuff fun, and remember, this is one of the best things you could ever do. So have fun creating. Thank you.